Hi, boys and girls. I am really proud of myself. I figured out how to use my document camera from home to make videos for you guys. So I'm going to be using my real book. This is my copy that I have had forever. This was my dad's copy. And I'm going to get to share the real book with you tonight. So this, if you'll remember, we're going to start on page 90, but we'll go back a couple of pages and you'll remember that Santiago said, "Don't jump, fish." He said, "Don't jump." And then the fish was circling around and he saw him first as a dark shadow that took long to pass under the boat. He said, "No, he can't be that big." But he was that big. And at the end of this circle, he came to the surface only 30 yards away, and the man saw his tail out of the water. It was higher than a big scythe blade and a very pale lavender above the dark blue water. It raked back, and as the fish swam just below the surface, the old man could see his huge bulk and the purple stripes that banded him. His dorsal fin was down, and his huge pectorals were spread wide. On this circle, the old man could see the fish's eye and the two gray sucking fish that swam around him. Sometimes they attached themselves to him. Sometimes they darted off. Sometimes they would swim easily in his shadow. They were each over 3 feet long, and when they swam fast, they lashed their whole bodies like eels. The old man was sweating now, but from something else besides the sun. On each calm, placid turn the fish made, he was gaining line, and he was sure that in 2 turns more he would have a chance to get the harpoon in. "But I must get him close, close, close," he thought. "I mustn't try for the head. I must get the heart." "Be calm and strong, old man," he said. On the next circle the fish's back was out, but he was a little too far from the boat. On the next circle he was still too far away, but he was higher out of the water, and the old man was sure that by gaining some more line he could have him alongside. He had rigged the harpoon long before, and its coil of light rope was in a round basket, and the end was made fast to the bit in the bow. The fish was coming in on his circle now, calm and beautiful looking, and only his great tail moving. The old man pulled on him all that he could to bring him closer. For just a moment the fish turned a little on its side, then he straightened himself and began another circle. "I moved him," the old man said. "I moved him then." He felt faint again now, but he held on to the great fish. He felt faint again now, but he held on the great fish all the strain that he could. "I moved him," he thought. "Maybe this time I can get him over." "Pull, hands," he thought. "Hold up, legs. Last for me, head. Last for me. You never went. This time I'll pull him over." But when he pulled all of his effort on, starting it well out before the fish came alongside and pulling with all his strength, the fish pulled part way over and then righted himself and swam away. "Fish," the old man said. "Fish, you are going to have to die anyway. Do you have to kill me too?" That way nothing is accomplished, he thought. His mouth was too dry to speak, but he could not reach for the water now. "I must get him alongside this time," he thought. "I am not good for many more turns." "Yes, you are," he told himself. "You are good forever." In the next turn he nearly had him, but again the fish righted himself and swam slowly away. "You are killing me, fish," the old man thought. "But you have a right to. Never have I seen a greater or more beautiful or a calmer or more noble thing than you, brother. Come on and kill me. I do not care who kills who." "Now you are getting confused in the head," he thought. "You must keep your head clear and know how to suffer like a man." Or a fish, he thought. "Clear up, head," he said in a voice he could hardly hear. "Clear up." Twice more it was the same on the turns. "I do not know," the old man thought. He had been on the point of feeling himself go each time. "I do not know, but I will try it once more." He tried it once more, and he felt himself going when he turned the fish. The fish righted himself and swam off again, slowly, with the great tail weaving in the air. "I'll try it again," the old man promised, although his hands were mushy now, and he could only see well in flashes. He tried it again, and it was the same, so he thought, and he felt himself going before he started. "I will try it once again." He took all of his pain and what was left of his strength and his long-gone pride, and he put it against the fish's agony. The fish came over onto its side and swam gently on its side, his bill almost touching the planking of the skiff, and started to pass the boat, long, deep, wide, silver, and bared with purple and interminable in the water. The old man dropped the line and put his foot on it and lifted the harpoon as high as he could and drove it down with all of his strength and more strength he had just summoned into the fish's side, just behind the great chest fin that rose high in the air to the altitude of the man's chest. He felt the iron go in, and he leaned on it and drove it further and then pushed all his weight after it. Then the fish came alive with his death in him and rose high out of the water, showing all of his great strength and width and all of his power and his beauty. He seemed to hang in the air above the old man and the skiff. Then he fell into the water with a crash that sent spray over the old man and over all of the skiff. The old man felt faint and sick, and he could not see well, but he cleared the harpoon line and let it run slowly through his raw hands, and when he could see, he saw the fish was on his back with his silver belly up. The shaft of the harpoon was projecting at an angle from the fish's shoulder, and the sea was discoloring with the red of the blood from his heart. First it was dark as a shoal in the blue water that was more than a mile deep. Then it spread like a cloud. The fish was silvery and still and floated with the waves. The old man looked carefully in the glimpse of the vision that he had. Then he took 2 turns of the harpoon line around the bit in the bow and laid his head in his hands. "Keep my head clear," he said again, against the wood of the bow. "I am a tired old man, but I have killed this fish, which is my brother, and now I must do the slave work. Now I must prepare the nooses and the ropes to lash him alongside," he thought. Even if we were two and swamped her to load him and bailed her out, even if we were two and swamped her to load him and bailed her out, this skiff would never hold him. He's talking about if the boy was with him. "I must prepare everything and then bring him in and lash him well and step the mast and set sail for home." He started to pull the fish in to have him alongside so that he could pass a line through his gills and out his mouth and make his head fast alongside the bow. "I want to see him," he thought, "and to touch and to feel him. He is my fortune," he thought, "but that is not why I wish to feel him. I think I felt his heart," he thought, "when I pushed on the harpoon shaft the second time. Bring him in now and make him fast and get the noose around his tail and another around his middle to bind him to the skiff." "Get to work, old man," he said. He took a very small drink of the water. "There is very much slave work to be done now that the fight is over." He looked up at the sky and then out to his fish. He looked at the sun carefully. "It is not much more than noon," he thought, "and the trade wind is rising. The lines all mean nothing now. The boy and I will splice them when we are home." "Come on, fish," he said, but the fish did not come. Instead, he lay there, wallowing now in the sea, and the old man pulled the skiff up onto him. When he was even with him and had the fish's head against the bow, he could not believe his size, but he untied the harpoon rope from the bit, passed it through the fish's gills and out his jaws, made a turn around his sword, then passed the rope through the other gill, made another turn around the bill, and knotted the double rope and made it fast to the bit in the bow. He cut the rope then and went astern to noose the tail. The tail had turned silver from its original purple and silver, and the stripes showed the same pale violet color as his tail. They were wider than a man's hand with his fingers spread, and the fish's eye looked as detached as the mirrors in a periscope or as a saint in a procession. It was the only way to kill him, the old man said. He was feeling better since the water, and he knew he could not go away, and his head was clear. He's over 1,500 pounds, the way he is, he thought. Maybe much more. If he dresses out 2/3 of that at 30 cents a pound. I need a pencil for that, he said. My head is not clear, but I think the great DiMaggio would be proud of me today. I had no bone spurs, but the hands and the back hurt truly. I wonder what a bone spur is, he thought. Maybe we have them without knowing of it. He made the fish fast to the bow and stern and to the middle thwart. He was so big, it was like lashing a much bigger skiff alongside. He cut a piece of line and tied the fish's lower jaw against his bill so his mouth would not open, and they would sail as cleanly as possible. Then he stepped the mast, and with the stick that was his gaff, and with his boom rigged, the patch sail drew, the boat began to move, and half lying in the stern, he sailed southwest. He did not need a compass to tell him where southwest was. He only needed the feel of the trade wind and the drawing of the sail. I better put a small line out with a spoon on it and try get something to eat and drink for the moisture. But he could not find a spoon, and his sardines were rotten. So he hooked a patch of yellow gulf weed with the gaff as they passed, and shook it so that the small shrimps that were in it fell onto the planking of the skiff. There were more than a dozen of them, and they jumped and kicked like sand fleas. The old man pinched their heads off with his thumb and forefinger and ate them. Chewing up the shells and the tails, they were very tiny, but he knew they were nourishing, and they tasted good. The old man still had 2 drinks of water in the bottle, and he used half of one after he had eaten the shrimps. The skiff was sailing well, considering the handicaps, and he steered with the tiller under his arm. He could see the fish, and he had only to look at his hands and feel his back against the stern to know that this had truly happened and was not a dream. At one time, when he was feeling so badly towards the end, he had thought perhaps it was a dream. Then, when he had seen the fish come out of the water and hang motionless in the sky before he fell, he was sure there was some great strangeness, and he could not believe it. Then he could not see well, although now he saw as well as ever. Now he knew there was the fish, and his hands and back were no dream. The hands cure quickly, he thought. I bled them clean, and the salt water will heal them. The dark water of the true Gulf is the greatest healer that there is. All I must do is keep the head clear. The hands have done their work, and we sail well. With his mouth shut and his tail straight up and down, we sail like brothers. Then his head started to become a little unclear, and he thought, is he bringing me in, or am I bringing him in? If I were towing him behind, there would be no question. Nor if the fish were in the skiff, with all dignity gone, there would be no question either. But they were sailing together, lashed side by side, and the old man thought, let him bring me in if it pleases him. I am only better than him through trickery, and he meant me no harm. They sailed well, and the old man soaked his hands in the salt water and tried to keep his head clear. There were high cumulus clouds and enough cirrus above them so that the old man knew the breeze would last all night. The old man looked at the fish constantly to make sure it was true. It was an hour before the first shark hit him. The shark was not an accident. He had come up from deep down in the water as the dark cloud of blood had settled and dispersed in the mile-deep sea. He had come up so fast and absolutely without caution that he broke the surface of the blue water and was in the sun. Then he fell back into the sea and picked up the scent and started swimming on the course the skiff and the fish had taken. So now the old man has a real problem. He's got sharks that are now following the skiff and following the marlin. Ooh.